We're back with the fourth episode of our video series focused on helping CPOs and their teams grapple with the critical issues that we're facing in these challenging times. Our goal here is to pose a few ideas, perspectives, and questions that you should be asking as you navigate your way through this pandemic and its human and economic implications. In today's video, I wanted to add a couple more thoughts on the scenario modeling topic that I discussed in the last episode, video number 3, which you can find in our COVID Resource Center linked above or below, depending on which platform you're watching this video on. First is the question of how many scenarios we should be modeling, and it makes sense that we consider, at the very least, 3 alternative scenarios, and specifically scenarios that are modeled around the type of economic recovery that we foresee over the next 12 to 18 months and potentially longer. At one end of the spectrum is the flat to slow long-term recovery view, where demand remains stagnant or comes back slowly and supply in turn is awaiting demand to catch up. As procurement executives, we can expect available supply for our categories, but with a strong emphasis on costs, a somewhat shifting supplier landscape given differing company economics to weather that storm, which means credit issues, bankruptcies, etc., and possible logistics and transportation complications depending on the regions impacted, where you buy from, and the nature of recovery by category. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you have a rapid recovery, more V-shaped in nature, where once we've solved for the virus, so to speak, we then ramp back up to business as usual faster than we expected. In this situation, demand goes back to normal and supply chains get stretched responding to this climbing demand. Supply availability, supply assurance, rising prices due to near-term bottlenecks all require thoughtful planning and quick responses to assure continued deliveries by your business. In between those two options, of course, is the U-shaped recovery, where after the initial drop, there's a flat period where we see stagnant demand due to impacted consumer confidence, a tentative ramp back up by businesses as they await more solid and more consistent economic and behavioral news. The emphasis for procurement executives is going to be in between the two extremes, but exactly where and how is the big question. We'll need to think through the implications for supply, cost containment, and more effective management. Underlying this analysis is the understanding that using recent history as the basis for projecting the future is not going to work. We need to think differently about supply options and the near and medium-term implications, especially as the extent of the slowdown is going to change the nature and structure of supply markets, who will be around versus who will not be, as well as the lengths both buyers and suppliers will be willing to go to procure what they need. In addition, the other aspect to be thoughtful of is how near-term actions under each scenario set us up for long-term success. How will we fare 12 months from now? How will our partnerships and options be impacted in 2 years by our options today, for example, if we have a similar situation as we do today? In other words, this could be the opportunity to reset and restart specific partnerships for a longer-term view. Finally, I go back to a point I made last time. Scenario planning is valuable, but let's deal in probabilities and not possibilities. Everybody and their mother has a view of the future. Remember, no one knows what's going to happen. We've never been through something like this before. So let's do our research, let's look at the data, let's consider our options and make the best decisions we can. And to be clear, that doesn't mean static one-off planning. It means continuous assessment as the relevant variables change, as data emerges and evolves, and as we learn more through our practical experiences. All right, that's it for this video. Be sure to check out our special COVID-19 site, which has plenty of data and analysis for you to access. You may be watching this video on the site itself, but if you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can access it via the link above or below, depending on where you are. Stay safe.